Good morning, everyone. It's 10 o'clock. We're in a work session with the SCRAA board members, and I see Manager Mr. Nardini and Mr. Schrocker here present. Emily, sorry, Emily. Good morning. She might be muted, but anyway, we'll get started. This is a work session, so no decisions can be made. It's a gathering information meeting, and so Jim Hansen contacted me 6 weeks ago.
April.
And so it was Jim, Mr. Barnes, myself, and Jerry. And so now we're going to move it forward to the whole board and the engineer for discussion, so everybody can get the full details all as one party, and then go from there. So who would like to do the presenting?
Well, maybe I could bring him up to speed.
Okay.
You guys know me, so I don't have to introduce myself.
This meeting is being recorded and or transcribed.
There you go. Okay, I'm done.
Jim's in disguise too, by the way.
The idea is a simple one. Cut 220th off at Independence and bring Independence down to 163. Improve it to whatever level it needs to be improved so it's a safe farm to market road. And then the traffic would be routed along 163 up to 220th as it goes north and west, right? My thought was we could reduce the traffic speed in that area, even beyond that part of 163 down to 55 miles an hour. So prior to talking to Mark or anybody else on the board, I called, Tom Riley put me in contact with a gentleman in Ames who then gave me Jim Armstrong's number. Jim Armstrong is the guy at Mount Pleasant that runs the regional DOT office. I spoke with him about the reduction of the speed, and he thought it sounded like a good idea. I told these guys, I was kind of surprised. Jim's not usually a very emotional individual, but he seemed pleased with the idea because he's encountered safety issues along 163 personally, or had a friend or something related to speed and farm traffic and all that along 163. So he was inclined to agree with that idea. I asked him who makes that decision. He said he did. So I brought that up to Dave and Jerry, and we had a call with Mark to discuss, at least float the idea as far as a way of compromising on the closure of the current 220th Street. So that's what we have. Mike Nardini has a map. If we need to look at the maps and look at the other proposals that have been given on 235th and all that, we can do that. I wanted to start a discussion, at least with you guys, about that alternative or any other alternatives you might have, so we can open this up and try to get things moving forward. So that's
I'll take a map if you got it, just for clarification, just to make sure we're on the same page. Oh, you got the big ones.
he's got a big map.
Not the 8.5 by 11s.
Like you guys on your table, but in essence, what we have here is a map of the farm to market road system in Mahaska County around this immediate area. And so what the cities have previously submitted to the supervisors for the disconnection of 220th Street was, as you're aware, we're planning on building a service road around the end of the airport for slow-moving farm vehicles. And for the farm to market road designation would be Independence Avenue down to Highway 163 right here. And so the farm to market road designation would be Independence, as Jim stated, from 220th down to 163 to ensure continuity in the Mahaska County farm to market road system. It's approximately the same distance of farm to market road that would be eliminated or vacated through the airport property on 220th Street. So from our standpoint, we had thought that that would be appealing to the Farm to Market Review Board from there. And the section of road that Jim's talking about, I believe, is right there. As far as the speed reduction, it would be right in this area. Is that correct, Jim?
Could be, or could be more than that as you drive into the area. He said, you know, we'll need signage, we'll need some enforcement to begin with to get people used to it. But you guys have, I'm sure, been on Highway 5 as you go north of Des Moines off of 92. They have a couple areas where they slow down the traffic on that route. So it's not an unusual thing for DOT to do. So. That yellow line on there, that's the, what is that, 235th?
That's 235th Street. That's what we had. This is actually a map by the Mahaska County Engineering Department that was supplied to us on here, and this was proposed what the Mahaska County had previously proposed, with just alignment along 235th to Dean Street, and also 235th, I believe, to Highland. Up here were the two alternatives.
Okay. I think I understand.
Comments? Thoughts?
No, I just give it some thought. I mean, we need to talk to, I mentioned this to Andrew earlier, but I'm not sure he's really put a lot of thought into it till we had a meeting to fully understand everything that I conveyed to him accurately. So, I mean, he'll have to study and see what his thoughts are for safety and concerns and I guess I can't say, we can't deliberate, I don't think, here, but, so, I mean, we have to have a public meeting at some point to see what everybody's thinking.
Well, you know, I looked at it, as I thought about it, I thought, well, yeah, you got more traffic on 163 than you do on 220th. But it's a 4-lane road. It's got full shoulders on it. And, you know, as you go on up 163, you've got other pieces that are farm to market as well. So it's certainly not unheard of. And one of the concerns, actually, as I looked at the map just this morning, is if you pull it down here to 235, you're going to end up getting wiped out up here where they're going to build the bypass. So that doesn't make a lot of sense to me either. But I think from SCRA's standpoint, we're open to discussion about any of these alternatives. We really haven't had, excuse me, much discussion at all with you guys. So I'd like to talk about it.
This is John Banstra, an executive board member of the SCRAA that was not included in these discussions, which I find to be a policy problem. But I would like to point out that on that section of 163 that is being proposed by the other board members, there have been multiple fatal accidents in the last, I don't dare to put a number on, 10, 15 years that have all but one involved ag equipment. I think this is, if we're building an airport for safety, we are transferring less safety to this section as proposed here. There needs to be a different route that's safer. Let's just put it that way. I don't know what the supervisors think, but if we're safety, this is not safety.
John, what do you think about the proposed mitigation road that goes around the edge of the airport?
Do you want the federal land to have a road on it that is not controlled by our county? I think that is also a bad idea. The 235th is the best proposal I've heard to date. Like I say, for whatever reason, the board has excluded me from these discussions. I think it's something that should be brought up at the next board meeting that we have at the airport. But in fact, I think this discussion today should be brought up at the next airport meeting. Because so far to date, we have wasted the supervisor's time by having work sessions but not taking any action on this stuff.
Well, let me just respond, John. I mean, that's just not correct. We've had total of two work sessions, this one being one.
I'll correct you already, because I sat at 2 in that room over there, Jim.
And the board, SCRAA board, hasn't discussed this because there didn't seem to be any point to discuss something until we had something that the board would be even interested in. To date, they haven't shown any interest in the other loop around. And so
If
we
I-
have discussed 235th informally at the board, but at this point.
So I guess just for clarification, the SCRAA board itself has not looked at this proposal and either approved or denied
Nope.
their thoughts of it.
Could I add to that
Sure.
too? And this is our knowledge of what happened. The environmental assessment called for a service road for slow-moving farm vehicles around the end of the airport to address the safety concerns. And that's what the parties thought they were moving towards. What our understanding was Mahaska County had a concern with closing 220th Street for the farm to market road designation. And that's what the cities have been working on with Mahaska County, is addressing the farm to market road designation. That's the proposal we submitted for your folks' consideration, was Independence. And we've always viewed the Independence designation for farm to market to work in conjunction with the service road around the end of the airport for safety issues on it. As a part of our deliberations, we've worked with your engineering department to address these options the cities have on this. And so the SCRA board has been limited to, would you say it's a fair statement, Mr. Hanson, what's been contained in the environmental assessment, which is the service road.
Something else that's new too is, if I can speak, to the idea that the DOT is willing to do something about speed on there. That's something that's new, and we just need to bring that in front of you to show you that that's a different approach than what was done before when we were talking about mitigating the 235th or 210th or anything.
So this proposal then also still includes the service road.
Yes.
Has the FAA decided where they want gates on that service road or not gates for security for the airport or anything?
Jerry?
If the service road concept moves forward, then we will work with FAA to define the method of construction and the standard to which it will be built. And the reason it hasn't went any further than that, we see county input on that design of that road as well. So to answer your question, we'll start with replacing kind. It's a gravel road today, rock road, on 220th. FAA would look at replacing it essentially to the same standard. However, if the county took a position that it wanted an all-weather surface, hard surface road, we can certainly discuss that too. That road would be designed.
Where would you put a hard surface road at?
Pardon?
Where would you think about putting a hard surface road?
He's talking the service road's gonna be hard
Service road.
surface.
Around the one that was set forth in EA, which extended down along the area and then tied back into 220th. It came down along the property line, went about towards the Prime Cemetery location, and then back up along the Prime and connected back in 220th, designed primarily to accommodate slow-moving vehicles. So
So
that's the purpose of the road.
So the service road will be in the, that inside the landing
Correct,
area?
yes. Yep. FAA has approved that. It took some negotiating with FAA to get them to say, we recognize the safety issue. It was brought up during the NEPA process, the public hearings, many public comments regarding safety. So we looked at ways to address that. That was found to be acceptable to FAA. So that would be, that's in there, it's included in the finding of no significant environmental impact, which essentially means they're obligated to do this. The SCRAA is obligated to construct the surface road. It was a mitigation action to the hazards of slow-moving vehicles with regards to 163 as expressed by the public. So that's how we address that.
Who would be in control of that road?
The SCRA would own the road and would be basically in control of it.
So
Yes.
they'll grade the snow, they'll salt it, they'll maintain it, they'll dig the ditches, they're gonna do all the maintenance on
I would say that is correct. We haven't negotiated that or
Right.
talked about that, but that's something we
Well,
can
that's-
talk about with the county.
Yeah, I'm getting the information. I guess I thought this informational meeting, right, Mark?
Yeah, no, you
Okay.
can come back.
Yeah.
So I'm just asking questions, because
Those are good questions.
how can the county force them to keep it open if they decide 3 months later they don't want it and they own it and they close it?
Well, one way that it will remain open, it was part of a federal action as set forth in the FONSI. So legally, they are required to build it and basically maintain it to keep it functional, to accommodate the purpose for which it was initially constructed.
Is now joining.
And that is to accommodate the slow-moving farm vehicles. Now, given the weight, now if that includes semis, fully loaded grain carts, and what have you, that the road's got to be built to accommodate that kind of traffic. And so, for that reason, then we would propose, or at least I would suggest, to the board that we meet with the county and the county engineer to determine how that road should be constructed. We'll coordinate that with FAA, and that's how we would proceed forward. If there's concerns regarding the maintenance, snow removal, maintaining that road, that can be put into an agreement as well between the SCRAA and the county. It could be another, I hate to say it, 28 years. But,
Well, I mean, you could contract
So-
with the county to maintain the road and we pay you for your costs.
or we can do it,
There's any
kind of do it
number
that
of
way
ways to do
too,
it.
yeah. In fact, we have a number of airports that the county does provide snow removal on the airport because they'll have equipment out there, so they do a 28E, they reimburse the county for the cost. So there's a lot of different things and ways where we can move forward in regards to not only building it, maintaining it, managing it for the purpose for which it is intended to serve.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Any questions, thoughts?
One question for me. In terms of this road being designated for slow-moving vehicles specifically, how would you regulate that only for slow-moving vehicles, and how would you define a slow-moving vehicle?
I don't know necessarily the answer. I think we come up with speed bump. I don't know. That's all left to determine.
David and Jerry, I'd love to turn it over to you, but this seems to be a policy issue for the SCRA. The regulation is no different than the maintenance and maintaining construction standards.
Exactly, yes.
I guess my question is based on what is going to keep day-to-day traffic that currently uses 220 to use this alternate route.
I would say the traffic that currently uses 220th, and I understand that my truck is an average of 140 units a day. I would assume this road would function in the same manner. We use the term, the issue that was brought up by the public was slow-moving vehicles. Recognizing that, that is why this concept was set forth. If those that currently use it, I would define for the most part on that road, I've driven that road for one time, it's not a high-speed road. People aren't traveling 65 or 70 on that road. So whatever they're doing today, and we can design it to accommodate that traffic that uses it today, I think that's where we should go. And the reason we put so much emphasis on the slow-moving farm vehicles is because that was what was brought up time and time again by the public, both in oral testimony and the written testimony, that we had an obligation to address. And so we've always said we will work with the county, and I always think of the county engineer when I say the county, I say the board knows more, but work with the county to work out all the weeds and the detail, and, how we're gonna build this road structure. There's some drainage ways in there. We wanna build some drainage structures, and we wanna incorporate that all in so it works at the end of the day.
So is it safe to say that you don't see like a physical barrier, a set of gates, or anything like that that would restrict access to this alternate route across federal land, airport land?
At one time, and early on in the discussions, the FAA said, yeah, we could put gates in there, control it if you want it, but I suspect, yeah.
That we open 90%?
Yeah, who's gonna do it?
Close it, yeah. Okay.
We have more threat from deer than we'll have from, somebody driving down that road. So, we're gonna build a fence, we'll build a wildlife fence. Sure. Not only to keep deer out, but other people out. But no, that would be the intent of that. And my biggest concern is, and we can clear the road on the approach surfaces, we checked that all out. When the airplane comes on approach, the road as well meets the FAA criteria. We know farm equipment is going to operate, go down that road, some different elevations, it's past pickups. So I think we look forward to the opportunity to sit down, if this is a proposal that's going to go forward, and that we would like to work with the county to see what to get a preliminary design concept done, and we want to coordinate that with FAA too, and so on and so forth. So, because the reason I think it's important to do early on is 220th will not be closed. It seems to me that you have to do the service road almost one of the first projects out of the gate. So when you start grading on the main portion of the runway, that disconnect could occur. And we've had projects where we've had road disconnects where we graded on one side of the road, graded on the other, and then we wait until the very end of the day, before we actually disconnect. And then that service road has to be operational in place.
I got a question for you, Jerry, if you'd answer it. Do you feel this proposal you guys are proposing today would be safer than the proposal the county engineering group gave you a year ago?
Well, I can't, say it's safer or less safe. I don't think I'm in a position to say that. What I'm in a position to say is that if we can accommodate, I like the service road because it keeps those farms, and I keep going back to farm vehicles, and grain wagons and things that aren't traveling at a higher speed. It's a way for them to traverse in that east-west direction, and it's a separate issue than the farm-to-market issue. This is a safety issue, and I think it is. It enhances the safety and gives alternative to those that use the road system, both the state and county road system. Because as Mike pointed out on the map, it shows where the existing farm-to-market roads are, and utilization in some cases they have to use 163 to provide for the continuity. This provides for that continuity, albeit it adds a little out of distance travel, but it's not a significant amount of distance travel. And I think it still leaves the options open, as Jim mentioned, with regards to independence. The bypass is coming in. There's a number of things out there that hopefully is improving safety overall. It still preserves your system and helps manage that.
Yeah, because the reason I ask is right now 220th even gets on 163 for 1,000 feet or whatever. To me, if we can put in an overpass to keep it off of there completely, we're a lot safer. That's why I asked the question.
Yeah, I think
'Cause,
bypass will address that. that question, and Independence, on the concept I seen from Iowa DOT, it ties, Independence ties back into that bypass, and then it goes over onto the 235th connection.
Because even if we do a loop around, the traffic still, the slow-moving vehicles still have to get on 163 for 1,000 feet to
Yeah.
go whichever way. And I'd like to eliminate that altogether if we could, while we do the project, I guess is why I'm asking. I feel it's a safer alternative. I know it costs a little more, but I feel, I don't know,
So,
how do you put a
just
value
so I
on it?
understand, or, yeah, I agree with you. So I understand, Jerry, when you talk about, you got Independence that drops down to the south, and then it's gonna tie right into the new highway, correct?
Mhm. Correct.
And then the new highway, which will have it overpass on
Take it over
163, you'll take it over 163, and then you'll tie it in somewhere, I don't know, you're going 235?
So he's thinking
Yeah.
of somehow tying this together, not using
Yeah.
163?
Yeah.
Is that what he's talking about?
Okay,
So
so
you said-
really, what you're talking about here, if we do the loop or whatever we do, it's more of a short-term, relatively, short-term answer to an issue that's gonna be solved by the bypass?
No.
No, Jim,
No.
because you're still proposing running that traffic down 163. All you're changing is the
No, I'm
intersection
suggesting
itself.
if, when the bypass is built, it's gonna run down Independence, go over.
No, but that still does not address the closing of 220th that goes down Independence, up 163, and then back on 220th on the light and blacktop.
You don't go that direction, you go south and you go around and come back on 230.
You know, the section you're closing though, you're
Right.
still proposing and putting that traffic
I'm
on
su-
163.
No, I'm suggesting, and correct me if I'm wrong, because
Well, I think that's one alternative.
Well, that's the alternative you're proposing. What the supervisors have previously proposed is rebuilding 235th and keeping that
I
traffic.
understand all that, I'm just trying to say what's gonna happen when the bypass is built, and I'm trying to understand what the flow of traffic is gonna be when the bypass is built.
The farmers are gonna use the same roads. Let's be realistic, you know. Ag equipment doesn't wanna run 4-lane highways.
Some of them will cross the bypass onto 235th, and 235th is not it's not a real safe road. So that's why we were trying to get a safe road for the farm equipment to go down.
Sure.
235th needs to be reworked to make it a great project, I guess, and a safe project. And that's why I think the engineering group proposed what they posed, because they're looking long-term safety and not just a Band-Aid fix or a short-term fix.
Yeah,
So-
okay, I get
So
that.
you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I see where you're coming from.
If 235th was an excellent farm-to-market road, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Yeah, you're right,
So,
you're right. So,
but,
so the thought is, if I hear John and you, if we could figure out a way to get, going back to that other proposal, if we figure out a way to get 235 in such a way that it could carry this traffic, and I can't speak for the cities and whether or not they would be interested in
yeah, I don't know.
participating with that, but maybe they would if this whole mess could be solved. That would be fantastic. But, you know, I see where you're coming from.
That's what I'm saying.
The little I understand about farm to market funding, however, indicates you probably aren't gonna get that whole thing.
Right, I think one of the reasons
Designated
they have
farm-to-market
farm-to-market funding is to get as safe a farm-to-market roads as we can.
Right.
So when you chop off a good farm-to-market road and put them on what I call a minerable gravel road that is not farm-to-market capabilities,
Yeah,
you're creating a real problem.
yeah, what
So-
I'm saying is, we're gonna close a mile of 220th Street, and you're talking about adding maybe a 5-mile loop. I don't know if they're gonna give you 5 miles worth of funding for a mile, so.
I'm looking at it as a safety issue, I
Yeah.
guess. So I thought that's why we're building a new airport, because Pella has
No, I
safety
don't
issues.
disagree.
And
I don't disagree, that's why.
I don't want to move their safety issues into my county. So
Well, and of
that's where
course,
I'm
that's why
at.
we suggested the loop around, to keep them off of 163, but.
The service road, is it gonna be owned by SCRAA, be owned by the federal? Who's gonna be owned, who would that be owned by?
It'd be owned by the agency, but as we talked previously, we can work through a 20-year agreement on all the issues with regards to maintenance, snow removal, other traffic control, so on and so forth. We can negotiate all that.
And Jerry, for the service road too, on the initial build on it, we work with Mahaska County, correct? It was always my understanding that would be very similar to what their current 220 standards are, correct?
Correct.
That ultimate build of the service road would be very equivalent to 220th Street the way it is right now. That was my understanding.
Could have a 100-foot right-of-way versus 75 then, like most county roads?
It doesn't sound like the right-of-way principles that these gentlemen are describing would apply, that there wouldn't necessarily be a right-of-way, because it would be a road that exists on a parcel of ground that is owned by a, I don't know, you call it a private entity, it's not a private entity, it's a public entity.
It's a public entity, and
But there's really not that prescription of easement that you would see across it most likely.
Would the gravel be the same width? Because 220th is wider than your average county road.
we would
gravel
design it
surface.
to the standard acceptable to the county. Whatever the road bed width, along with the ditches and the drainage structures, it would be designed to satisfy county standards.
Yeah, and I guess maybe I misheard, but we were talking, I think you mentioned at one point that we could consider hard surfacing as an option
We would consider
and
that.
not just matching what the surfacing is on 220th.
Exactly.
So we would have to continue
Yes.
discussions in that direction.
But we'll start with replacing kind, and then we'll look at the upgrades.
Yeah. One of my concerns would be what are the traffic projections with the addition of the airport? How much traffic is going to use that from the airport, you know, as a destination point now? Does the traffic increase on 220th or the service road because folks are maybe trying to get around to a certain place on the airport property and it's quicker for them to go a certain direction? So that would have an impact on the design criteria that we would use.
We can work with you on that and get the traffic numbers. The terminal area, if you're familiar with the layout plan, is on the west side of the airport, just north of Marshall. Right, yeah, that's a good reference point. You're right adjacent to the water, elevated water source.
So what we were describing those new business or whatever would happen on the east side of the airport that might increase the traffic load on that road trying to go from 163 around to the east side?
That's not necessarily what I was thinking of, but it is certainly a.
Potentially,
yeah,
right, something to
absolutely,
think
yeah,
about.
who knows what's gonna
Can
happen.
it be designed for a larger traffic load?
Absolutely, yes, yes.
Anticipating perhaps there might be some growth. Who knows? We don't
Or
know.
at least, yeah. when
We don't
you
know
say
what kind of
design,
growth.
I think that makes a good point, because you can at least leave the space or whatever for it to be widened if necessary. I think we would all, it'd be great if we had all sorts of people wanting to build.
10 years from now, we don't know what kind
Build
of
warehousing
industry
or
might show up
industry
out
or
there.
whatever out there, that'd be fantastic. So
And
I'm
I
sure
think-
we'd deal with
I think that might be what, it might not be the same thing that you're talking about, but it sort of dovetails into that concept that you don't want to limit yourself, that we're going to put a
Yes.
24-foot wide gravel road here and then potentially add pieces or development or something up to it that would restrict widening or facilitating all of the traffic that could potentially use this.
I should mention also maybe that we will seek Iowa DOT assistance through the RISE program, which I think some of you are probably familiar with, to construct airport improvement from 163 to the airport terminal. That would be another segment that would be hard surfaced. That feeds into the airport itself. In fact, in Sioux County, we had, golly, I think, half a mile to 3/4 mile of new county road that we used the RISE program to fund that. So there's things we can look at.
Any other thoughts?
So what would be the next steps? What needs to happen to get some additional feedback from the county, either on the service road or the farm market proposal that the cities have presented? So what do we need to do? What can be done next? And when?
I guess unless Andrew wants to speak differently, but I mean, my thoughts, Andrew's probably gonna take it back to the engineering department, talk to the engineers there. I wanna talk to the engineering department, their thoughts. At some point, the 3 supervisors, I'll put on the public meeting for us to talk about it. And so, I mean, that's where I would foresee it going.
Something that I might ask for, a couple of things come to mind. When developing this idea of the service road in conjunction with reducing the traffic speed, reducing the posted speed on Highway 163, I would be curious if the DOT has any state safety statistics in terms of increase or reduction or any impact on major accidents, fatalities on 4-lane divided segments like this. You know, you mentioned Highway 5, I think. I'm aware of another one on US 218, on Highway 218 between the city of Ainsworth and Riverside, where this is done too. This is specifically for a high school. But I've always been curious, you know, what happens when we implement those types of things. You know, the crashes increase, or you know, the severity increase, frequency, that sort of thing. So that would be a question that I would have. Another one that I would have that I might mention to the board would be, are there any other airports that have done this sort of thing that would be able to provide potentially an example agreement where traffic is facilitated across the airport property for public traffic? The other question that I would have is, who has the authority to enforce traffic laws on that property? Does Mahaska County Sheriff and his deputies have the authority to cite speed violations, that sort of thing? I think that those are questions that I don't necessarily need to be involved in as the county engineer, but perhaps as the board of supervisors, those are things that you guys would be interested in having a little more information on. So I think those things, Mike, would be helpful for the board potentially to understand what they're getting themselves into. So if you all had things like that to share, I think that would facilitate their, you know, advance the conversation.
Yeah, because some of our roads, we have setbacks and variances that we build by, and if we're not in control of the road, we cannot control that aspect of it.
Yeah.
So,
And the thing that occurs to me, 2 things from what you said. First of all, that guy back, Jerry back there has been involved in most airports in the state, so he could probably help you with if there's any other airports that are similar to this type of road. And the second thing, I'm not saying it would happen immediately or anything, but depending on how things would go, you know, maybe it would make sense for the road to be dedicated to the county. You know, if it becomes a real thoroughfare, if it becomes something where there's some real traffic that needs to be controlled, maybe that would make the most sense, and you work out a deal regarding that. So my point being is that and I think what's come of this conversation, to me at least, it's shown there's some real opportunities to be flexible as to how this thing might develop and what it might become as time goes on.
Do you think the FAA would be agreeable to the county owning a piece of land in the middle of their airport?
That's a good question.
We have not had that discussion with FAA, where the FAA participates in the acquisition of property for the purpose of acquiring an aeronautic or satisfying aeronautical purpose. I would pose that question to FAA, whether that could be acquired with FAA funds and then turned around and basically deeded to the county. What you're saying in the form of a right of way. I think they would look more favorably on, if it gets the way the federal funding works, on doing an easement where we define that area with a legal description in an easement along with other concerns that they had. I think that would be the appropriate way. Unfortunately, FAA is not the purpose of building roads. They're the purpose of building airports.
I have to think there's one way or the other that question could be answered, because there are plenty of private roads in Iowa And there's plenty of people speeding on it, but somebody's gotta enforce that, right? So there's gotta be an answer to that. Just don't know what it is.
Yeah, I think that's all negotiable in an agreement, so, you know, signage, even the, you know, we'll probably fence on either side of that road as well. And so there's just different things that we will talk about when we get into that level of detail.
Are there showstoppers with that road? I mean, it sounds like there's a concern that it might be closed in the future, but Gary's addressed that, I think. But are there like a list of items that you want to see in some type of agreement that would help alleviate the concerns? Like, I guess it's trying to get a little bit more meat into that so we can.
Well, I was under the understanding we were working on 235th, so this is all new to me. This is first I've heard of this. So I thought we were gonna upgrade 235th to a farm to market road.
Okay, so let's talk about that.
Huh?
Let's talk about that some more.
We already did, what, a year ago? Didn't we? Didn't our engineering department give them a proposal and everything?
Yeah, that's what we talked about a year ago, whenever it was.
So, I mean, I
So
guess,
the
I don't
county
know.
will take steps to try to designate 235th as a farm to market road then?
That's my understanding. They was gonna try and move that 235th to the farm to market.
I mean, when I looked at the airport plan at Otley, when they were gonna build an airport at Otley, they had the road relocation and everything in that plan, correct, Mr. Nardini?
Just to clarify that, we never made it to the steps of an environmental assessment at Otley, and we never had funding commitments from the county on that, and that's probably not an apples to apples comparison as far as the Otley plan as opposed to this right there, and what we're considering here as far as the roads.
I thought I had a letter from Marion County that was all in there, I guess. I don't know, I have to look through my stuff.
Yeah.
My apologies.
Yeah, that's, the Otley plan was, we never made it through an environmental assessment for the Otley Airport
Okay.
on that. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jerry?
No, that's correct.
Yeah, and so it never went through the thorough detail that we had here. The funding for any potential roads was never addressed with Marion County. So that's probably not a fair comparison saying that it was a planned improvement on it, so.
Jerry, it wasn't in the plan that they were trying to move forward up there about relocating the road?
Well, that project also required a disconnect and then showed a road relocation.
That's what I thought, yeah.
But there was no discussion as to who was going to pay for it, whether that was the county was going to build that on their own, or whether we would obviously would try everything we could to get public participation. But it never, like indicated, never even went to
Yeah,
who was going to pay for it.
that's what I was
But you knew, when you built that airport, you were gonna have a problem. So when you come down here, you knew when you built this airport, you're gonna have a problem. And I mean, I get a little bit of the feeling like the county's created a mess, and I don't think it's the county that created the mess.
I appreciate your comment because I can almost literally say, I don't know of any place in Iowa that we can build an airport of this magnitude without owning a county road.
My point
And
exactly.
I think that
Thank you.
was made very clear from the onset. I mean, that's, it's a mile grid. I mean, we'd have to go out in the floodplain area somewhere, you know, find a piece of ground and then have a road going through it. But,
Come and talk to me. I'll work with you.
Especially this week.
Hey, right now it's mile-long corn roads. I'll work with you.
I'll tell you what, if we could get FAA to go along with it, we'd go and seek the path of least resistance, I can tell you that.
And don't worry about it. The federal government's already called it a non-wetland, so do what you want, do what you want.
We have enough problems.
I got the letters. It's non-wetland. We can.
Thanks for answering my question, because I was under the assumption that as this project moved ahead, it had already been discussed once, that relocating the road is part of the project.
Yeah,
So,
and the mitigation for that was the service road
Yeah.
that was presented in the plan. And so that started there. There was some, then the discussion started with the new board of supervisors, whether or not that was going to be acceptable, and so we started looking at other alternatives.
There was
And our farm to
210
market funding come in, which I learned that as the process went on, and then it was gonna be a gated road, which I knew that wouldn't work at all, and so that's how this stuff's all. I'm working for my
Focus on
citizens.
235th Street, gotta get costs associated with that, how it works with the new bypass, and then, you know, put it to the cities. This is what needs to happen.
I believe in one of the work sessions, Jerry mentioned it costs roughly a million a mile, and that's roughly 6 miles.
Okay, so
I'd have
$6
to
million
do that, but, you know, he said in one of these work sessions,
Okay, and that's
and
fair.
said those numbers, and I thought that people were under the impression that the board was gonna take it back to the city. But apparently hasn't happened.
Well, I think that there's been discussions, I mean, it's been, but $6 million versus $1 million, that's something to consider, right? So I think we're looking for other alternatives to that, but if the board, if you guys are saying this is the way it's gotta be, then I think we figure out if that's reasonable, and I'm not sure it is, but that's just me. I don't make the decision.
Can't put a price on safety in my aspect, so.
We're building a multi-million-dollar airport for safety, so what's 6 million in comparison?
We just have to study a little bit, and I think us and Andrew need to meet with the engineering department, see what we can come out with. I'm not trying to be unreasonable, I just want all my questions answered. so.
I guess I would just, I don't mean to be difficult. But that results in a heck of a windfall for Mahaska County to get a 5-mile road fixed up and only give it up a mile.
And how much is
And
it?
so, well, then hold on. I'm not saying that's wrong, I'm just saying there's an element of fairness, an element of, what else can you do to get it together? What can Mahaska County do? So, litigation here that we can get rid of, we have all sorts of things we can deal with, but it would be wonderful, I think, for the entire county if we got rid of all that, but think about that.
Would it also be something to consider, Jim, of what Mahaska County loses in tax revenue from the land that's taken out of service?
You're not gonna lose any because the stuff, the land down at the old airport's gonna be put back in service. So
But that's not the same amount of acres.
it's pretty good.
I mean, you know, if
And
we're
some
gonna
of ours-
compare, if we're gonna compare windfalls to windfalls.
No, it's probably actually more because a good portion of the land that's being purchased now is gonna still be running as cropland or be taxed.
But it won't be taxed.
Yeah, it will.
Because
If
of
it's
the
rented as
federal-
cropland, it will be.
We're currently paying taxes on the parcels we own.
Yeah.
We're acquiring approximately 582 to, and I'll just round it up to 600 acres. The existing Oskaloosa site's 300 or 620 acres, so it's almost a wash.
That's been the case.
Couple acres.
That's been the discussion all along, and, that there wouldn't be any reduction in tax revenue in business, and of course, close to 2 acres, 1 it's about.
Do you have any questions at this point, Andrew? Gentlemen?
Aside from what I mentioned, that's all I have right now.
Okay. Steve or Steve? Thanks, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.